Hello, miraculous women and gentlemen. It's Tiffany, the Miracles Coach. If this is your first time here, welcome. This video is a part of a 7-day journey where I guide you to surrender your business to God and allow Him to be your CEO so you can build a business that flows from divine strategy, divine authority, and divine design. You've landed here mid-series, so my suggestion would be to pause and start with day 1 so you can follow the full experience from the beginning, as all of these days kind of build on one another. If you'd like to do that, I've linked everything for you in the description. Or if you were drawn to this particular video, you're also welcome to stay and watch and see where it leads you. Either way, I am so excited that you're here. Now, for those of you who've been around for a bit, welcome to day 3 of the Surrendered Business Experience. First of all, let me just begin by saying, if you're in this live experience with me, I know that I have had to pause for a significant amount of time, very unexpectedly, and it's not typically ideal when you're in the middle of a series, but unfortunately, last month was a really challenging month for me, and in my last video, I was sharing that I was going to be traveling and my family was going on vacation, and when we returned home, there was just a lot of things going on and playing out. I had a death in the family, one of my kids got really, really sick, and life was just lifing, and I had to slow down quite a bit. I won't get too much into the details here, but if you want to know more, you want to know specifics, you can join me over in the Telegram group in the Miracles Unscripted area, where I've been pretty much sharing everything that's been going on in my life since I started this YouTube channel. And I will definitely be sharing a lot more about specifically what was going on, what I learned from it, how I moved through it, and all of those things. The Telegram group is also where the full surrender experience is happening, with all the journal prompts, the prayers, the affirmations, the practices, everything that you will need to help you integrate this into your daily life to really see the full effect of this experience. Like I said, listening is so very powerful. You being here listening to this alone is going to change your life. But if you want the full experience, join me over in the Telegram group. And like I said, you get all the behind the scenes as well. But here's the important part that I want to make sure that I share with you about my time away. And it's that even while my life felt like it was in a complete uproar, because of my practice with surrender, I was able to stay deeply anchored in that energy, like completely surrendered, just in my connection with God, continuing the inner work that I was doing. And I was already in a season of a lot of inner expansion and up leveling. I already felt that energy, and it's almost like everything was coming to a head. But even though I felt really stretched and it really felt quite chaotic at times, it didn't break me. It didn't knock me off my square. It didn't take me off my path. It may have slowed me down a little bit, but it did not stop me. Instead, what happened was that it really deepened me, and it asked a lot of me, and I had to really tighten up on my boundaries, and I had to let go of a lot of things, even simple things like the idea of being frustrated with the fact that I couldn't record and I couldn't be present with you in the way that I wanted to be. There was just so much dust kicking up in my 3D, and I know that that was because of the work and the up leveling that I was doing. And that's another thing that I really want to touch on and make sure that I mention, is that when we are in really big, expansive seasons and we're up leveling and quantum leaping, things are shifting. Things have to be rearranged, and there's sometimes a lot that can be happening. I mean, at one point I was just like, what is happening, God? Like, I literally feel like I'm under attack because the blows are just coming non-stop. But one of the things I really want to remind you of, and that I had to constantly remind myself of in the moment, and this is something that I used to teach back in the day sometimes on my live streams, probably close to a decade ago now, but I would share how when you turn on hot water, you don't typically get hot water. You usually get cold water first, right? Because you get what's sitting in the pipes. So when you turn on the faucet, you're turning on the flow, but the flow doesn't start turning hot until you run out what's already sitting there. And so it works the same way when you're, like I said, up leveling and quantum leaping. A lot of times what happens is you'll be doing the work and you're shifting things and things are rearranging for you, but it doesn't happen immediately. Well, let me rephrase that. It does happen immediately, but you don't see it immediately. You don't feel the effects immediately. It's happening behind the scenes, but you don't see it yet. Like, in other words, you just don't feel the hot water yet. But over time, is all that old stuff, those old beliefs, that old outdated identity, and all of those things that are sitting in your pipes, all of those old things that are in your body and in your nervous system and in your mind, once they begin to come up, move out, and clear out, it makes room for the new things that your new energy is creating. And so, yeah, I just really wanted to share all of that with you because I just feel like it fits so perfectly into the lesson for today. And it doesn't shock me that I went through all of this around this time. I think that it's perfect timing. I know that it's perfect timing for me. I believe it's perfect timing for you. And I know that God is just allowing it to unfold in the way that it's meant to. And so I'm totally here for that. I don't love being in the turmoil. I don't love the dust kicking up in my 3D, but I also know that everything that I go through is just something else that I can share. And I'm especially grateful for the fact that I do take the time to slow down and pause and surrender when I need to, because taking that extra time that I took away for vacation and then the extra rest that I needed afterwards, the emotional space that I needed after the loss in my family, and the presence that was needed with my daughter, it all has deepened this message so much for me. Last month was a lot, but I also believe that it is what made this month one of the most expansive months for me internally. And now everything feels so much clearer. I can feel that what I'm teaching you right now is so much richer and so much more embodied because of what I walked through last month. I'm recording this message in November of 2025, and November is actually one of my favorite months because Thanksgiving is one of my favorite holidays, and also 3 of my 4 daughters were born in November, so this month has been beautiful and miraculous, but a little chaotic in a good way. Totally 180'd from October to November, but it has taken a lot of my time. Like I said, there was just a lot of extra presence needed with all the things that were going on this month, and so yeah, that's why I've been away, and I just wanted to say thank you so much for your patience and for coming back to continue this experience with me. All is well in my world now, and I'm super excited to be back with you guys to share this next lesson. So today we're going to be diving into one of the most important conversations we are going to have in this entire experience. And it is why people have such a difficult time with surrender and how you can make it feel more effortless, safe, and natural. Because let's be honest, we can all say we trust God, but the moment things start to feel uncertain or things aren't going the way we want them to, we start to tense up again. We start to overthink and we revert right back to trying to figure things out and control the outcomes again. In our last lesson, we talked about what surrender is and is not, and we came to the conclusion that surrender actually is giving up sometimes, but not in the way that the world views it. When we choose to give up, give in, and give over to God, because it's actually all of those things, it becomes what we call a divine exchange, where when we're willing to give up what we have, what we think we want, and even who we are as a person, and we open our hearts to receive God's infinite power, peace, and provision, we allow Him to work miracles on our behalf. And what I find so interesting about this, even in my own journey, is that if these things are something that we all agree that we overall desire to experience, if peace, power, and provision are the very things our souls crave, then why do we resist the one thing that can actually guarantee them? Why would we not choose surrender every single time? Because I mean, if you clicked on this video, and especially if you followed this experience from day one, or you've taken this experience in the past, or you saw something about this on whatever platform you might have seen it on, and you were like, surrender, that's something I'm interested in, then it's probably safe to say you have a pretty positive perspective about surrender, right? You may think, okay, this is something I want to know more about. Or you may have experienced it before and you realize how beautiful and amazing and life-changing it is. You may even believe you're someone who is meant to live a surrendered life. Or you may have experienced it before and you weren't able to really stick with it and you just felt like this isn't really working, even though I believe that it could work, I just don't know how. And it all sounds doable until, of course, it requires you to actually let go of something you don't want to let go of, or to let go of something you didn't even know you were clinging to in the first place. Or what about when it asks you to release the plans you made for how your life was supposed to go, or to loosen up your grip on what you thought would happen and when, or to let go of something you've been praying for and now you have to trust God with the outcome. That's where it all starts to get really real, right? And I get it, because surrender often asks you to give up the very things that may mean the most to you in the moment. Your own timelines, your dreams, that relationship you thought would last forever, the business idea you've been wanting to see come to fruition, or the financial goal you've been reaching for months or maybe even years. You know, that one specific thing, because we all have at least one that you've been holding close to your heart for as long as you can remember. That's one of the main reasons why surrender feels hard. But there are a few more reasons we're going to unpack and explore today, because until we understand what's really happening inside of us, we'll continue to keep defaulting back to trying to micromanage every little detail of our lives instead of trusting that we're actually safe to let go and let God take the lead. Now, honestly, day 3 is one of my absolute favorite days because this work is so powerful and transformative. And I know when it clicks for you, and it is different for everyone how and when it clicks, but when it does, it truly changes your entire life. So I want you to be able to see how surrender can be easeful and peaceful and even pleasurable. It's not meant to feel heavy or shameful or make you feel like you're failing, quitting, or like it's something negative. I don't even want you to carry a belief that it has to be hard. Because yes, it can feel hard and even scary at times because as humans, we are hardwired to believe that being in control is what keeps us safe. The ego equates control with safety. It thrives on control because its primary function is to keep us in the familiar, to keep us comfortable, to keep us normal, to keep us in the status quo. And overall, all of that is to keep us safe. We have an innate primal need to protect ourselves. So it's not a bad thing and it's not wrong necessarily. It's just a human survival instinct trying to keep us safe in the only way that it knows how. It's how we learn to cope throughout life by managing and planning and holding it all together, figuring things out, doing everything ourselves. So we think if I'm in control, I can prepare myself and I can protect myself. If I hold everything together, I can keep things from falling apart, or I can prevent embarrassment or disappointment or pain or loss. So when God asks us to release this control, even to Him, it can feel like we're stepping into the unknown without a safety net or jumping out of an airplane without a parachute, right? Because it's new and it's unknown and it's outside of our comfort zone. Our brain and our nervous systems automatically go into high alert and read all of this as risk, even if our spirit believes that it's right. So even if you feel in your heart, like in that deeper part of yourself, you know that this is the right thing for you. In your mind, you're like, I like the idea of surrender. I'm open to this surrender thing. But when you get into the thick of it, that's where people start to feel like, wait a minute, this is a bit too much. It's almost like what I was going through. I know that good things happen when dust kicks up. I'm not a stranger to this work. I've been doing this work for over a decade. Like, I know what it looks like when there's rearranging happening. I heard a girl say recently on Instagram, like, I'm starting to see a pattern here. I realize that when life starts to get really hard, I have a glow up. So it's not that we don't know it's here to make us stronger, to make us better. But what happens is when stuff starts to get really crazy, it can be a little more scary for some people, for most people. I wouldn't say that fear is something that I experience as much anymore, but it definitely makes me uncomfortable. I get very frustrated at times, and sometimes I even get low-key offended. Last month, I was just like, okay, God, what is actually going on here? Because I thought I was doing all of these things right. I'm expecting miracles to happen, and it feels like turmoil and chaos, and I don't understand it. And even though intellectually I did understand and I knew what was going on, like I said, I'm not a stranger to this work. I've done it enough to know what happens or what can happen. Actually, when I first learned about the law of attraction, I remember reading about something where it talks about all hell breaking loose. So this is something that I know. It's not something I buy into. So I'm not like, expect all hell to break loose. But it doesn't mean that it won't happen or that certain things won't start to come to the surface. And that's what you need to know. It's just that certain things are coming to the surface to be released. And so even though, like I said, it was very uncomfortable, I was very frustrated, and it felt very difficult in the moment. When we understand and acknowledge that, first of all, apart from God, we literally cannot do anything. And we're not actually in control of anything because God is the one holding and sustaining it all. Even the things we think that we're doing in our own power, like all of these things that we walk around doing on a daily basis that you think you're doing in your own power. And then I want you to just really think about the fact that none of it is possible without God. Because at the end of the day, we really don't run anything. God runs this. And it's really important that we get that. And when we do, surrender stops feeling like danger and it starts feeling like the safest place you could ever be. That's when it becomes easier to soften, to lean back into the arms of God, and to let go of the pressure to manage it all so you can let Him be the one to handle everything for you. Now, of course, there is balance to this, and we'll talk about that in future lessons. But right now, I want to focus on one of the biggest reasons why people believe that surrender is hard. And simply put, it's their belief. They believe surrender is hard, so surrender is hard. Because belief is the invisible mechanism driving every visible outcome in your life. It is the driving force behind everything you do and even the things that you don't do. It factors into how you move, act, decide, trust, show up in the world, love, lead, all of it. Everything in your life right now is a reflection of what you have believed up to this point, consciously or unconsciously. So belief doesn't just appear out of nowhere. It's actually built through conditioning, which is what you've been taught, what you've experienced, and what you've repeated enough for it to feel true. And every thought, word, experience, and emotion became a message your body recorded as a truth that taught you this is how life works. And over time, those messages begin to shape your belief system. So conditioning is so much more than just what happened to you. It's the meaning your mind and your body assigned to it, and the story that kept it looping over and over again until it solidified into what you now consider to be truth. So now we're conditioned to believe that things are hard. We're conditioned to believe that we have to work hard for everything. We're conditioned to believe that if you don't get off your butt and do it, nobody is going to do it for you. Whose parents have said that to them? I feel like everybody says these things. Parents say them, teachers say them. Now I work on social media and I'm surrounded by other coaches who say them. And look, I get it. I get that you have to work. I'm not telling anybody that you don't have to do anything to get what you desire. Some sort of work or action is definitely necessary, but it doesn't have to be hard. And I'm not even going to say that I don't deal with this too. Even I've been conditioned to believe this my entire life as well. And that's exactly what I had going on in the beginning of my business. When I first started my business, y'all, back in 2015, I was homeschooling my daughters from like 9 in the morning till about 2 in the afternoon. And then I would work basically from about 2 or 3 in the afternoon until sometimes 9, 10, 11, even midnight. So I'd have calls with clients throughout the day. And then once I was done with calls, I'd be creating content and creating courses and doing all the things that I needed to do to build the back end of my business. So it was like my daughters were my 9 to 5, and then my business was my side hustle. And I was working nonstop around the clock. And then to top it all off, I think I made about $5,000 in 2015. $5,000 for the entire year, and really nothing for the first half of 2016. It took me about a year and a half before I actually started to see real results and real money in my business. And at first, I was working really hard to make that money. As a matter of fact, I had started a second business. So I was also working a project management business that I started, and I was doing all the things because I thought that that was necessary. It wasn't until after doing a lot of this work and learning from people and books and all of the things that I studied that it didn't have to be hard. And interestingly, like I had already heard it multiple times and done the work and all of those things, but it was one particular live stream I heard that changed my entire perspective on this. I was listening to one of my favorite mentors. It was actually the first time I had ever encountered him. And he was talking about terms and conditions and how you get to determine what the terms and conditions are in your life and in your business. So you can say, this is what I choose, and you don't have to do what everybody says that you have to do. And in that moment, I decided that, you know what? I like the fact that I'm making money now, but I don't like the fact that I'm working so hard. So I slowed down significantly on the second business, and I started to make shifts and make changes that actually started to make my business feel lighter and easier. And instead of working with one-to-one clients all the time and constantly being on the phone with different people, I decided to create my first group coaching program because you save a lot of hours working one-to-many versus many people one-to-one. And the funny thing about that is that my mentor at the time, like my actual coach that I was working with at the time, she told me that I shouldn't start a group program until I had a solid one-to-one practice. And to be honest, even though I was doing a lot of calls throughout the day, most of them were just discovery calls or just me kind of getting to know people. I was doing a lot of free calls and things like that just to kind of get my feet wet. And so I really had only worked with 2 or 3 paid clients. So I wouldn't call that a solid one-to-one practice. And she was very adamant about this because I told her, I really want to have a group program. Like, that is my dream. And she was just like, it's not time. You're not at that point yet. You haven't worked with enough clients to build a solid group program. And I was sad about that, but I took her advice because I felt like she was the expert. But when I heard that live stream that day, and I realized that I do get to decide the terms and conditions of my business. Who cares if I haven't worked with a ton of one-to-one clients? I still have an audience out here. People are still listening to me. So how hard could it be? And so I started that group program, and I had 8 women join me in the very first round. I actually had way more success in the group program. And I realized that I could do whatever I wanted. This terms and conditions thing is actually right. Like, I do decide what happens. And it really is a choice. And I want to make sure that I keep reminding you of that throughout this teaching because it really is a decision. So now I know that I don't have to work as hard. I'm not conditioned to believe that as much anymore, even though I definitely still get caught up in that from time to time. All of us get caught up in it sometimes, But I don't buy into it anymore that I have to work hard to make a bunch of money in my business, because I've already proven that that is not true. Now I know that I can make a ton of money in my business and work only 15, maybe 20 hours a week, if that. I already know that I can take almost a year off of my business and still see six figures flow into my bank account. And that's more than I had made in a year prior to that. When you decide that things can be easy, they become easier. But like I said, it is a belief and it is a decision. You get to decide that it's time for you to have what you want and that it gets to be easy. You get to decide what the terms and conditions of your life are going to be. So see, conditioning is when somebody's speaking to your subconscious, constantly saying the same thing over and over again. It's hard to make money. You're going to have to work hard if you want to accomplish anything in life. You're going to have to get off your butt and do the work and make things happen. Money doesn't grow on trees. Nobody's going to hand you things. If you want it, you have to work for it. You have to go get it. Blah, 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 blah. All those things that people have taught you throughout your life is conditioning. And those things get imprinted into your subconscious. And then consciously, you might think, okay, well, I want to try to see if this can be easy. I want to see if I can choose the terms and conditions of my life. And you might even say out loud, this can be easy. You might even start to move and take action in a way that feels easier. But then all of those limiting beliefs and negative thought patterns are going to pop right back up as soon as you try to say that consciously. The ego is going to be like, no, actually, it's not easy, because remember, you took all of this time to make this amount of money, or you took this long to do this, or you took this long to do that. So if I had paid attention to how long it took me to actually start making money, if I didn't have those realizations, or if I didn't start to choose ease and choose flow and choose that it could be soft and surrendered and that it didn't have to be hard, then I would have continued doing the same things and working hard. And maybe I would have seen success. Nobody's saying that you can't see success from hard work. I'm not denying that working hard can bring success, but it brings it in a way that's not enjoyable. I mean, who wants to work hard for everything? And I know that this might sound crazy to some people because this is what society tells you is necessary. But when I finally decided that I wanted things to be easier, I made that choice, because nobody is going to stop you from working hard. As a matter of fact, the world is going to continue to tell you that it's necessary, because this is what the world believes. This is how everybody's been conditioned. That's why so many people are convinced that working hard is the only way that things can be accomplished. And that's why there are so many people out here in the world thinking that it's cute to hustle and to be busy and to say that you do all these things, because people have been brainwashed and conditioned to believe that this is the way things have to be done. So I was watching another reel on Instagram, and this girl said that she showed up online 365 days in the past year. She hadn't missed a day of showing up online in 365 days. And she was saying that she had all this success in her business. I think she said she had like 5 times their income, different things like that. And I think the point of her message was to share with people, like, be consistent, keep going, don't give up, that kind of thing. And I get that. I definitely am totally here for that. But at the same time, 365 days of showing up online, in my opinion, I just thought that that was insanity, because I thought to myself, who works 365 days a year? Now, I think I said this in my last video, like, my life is not built for that. I don't have that kind of capacity, and I don't want to do that. I don't find that appealing at all. And she even mentioned that she had a death in her family, like her grandmother died or something like that, and she had her social media posts automated and things like that. So because she had those things running in the background of her business, even if she wasn't actually present in the moment, it looked like she was present. But to be honest, I'm not really worried about that. Like, even in this last month or so that I've been away, and by the time you get this video, it'll probably be close to 2 full months that I have been away from you guys. And yes, I don't enjoy that. I don't like being away from you. I wish that I could have gotten back sooner. But when there's something to tend to in my life, I'm not pressed about it. That's the beauty of living a surrendered life, because I'm not interested in pleasing anybody but God and myself. I'm not concerned with what you guys think about the fact that I've been gone, because what was going on in my life was more important to me at the time. So like I said, I don't like being away from you guys, and I do miss you when I'm gone. And I was craving getting back to this work. Like, I love what I do. I love doing this. This is what I do. But my life doesn't revolve around this YouTube channel or this business or any of that. So when life is lifing and it needs my attention, that is my primary focus. The rest of it doesn't really matter to me, if I'm being honest. This is just me being real with you. And this is another thing too, because it's a lot of proving and performing that people feel like they have to do online to accomplish things, when it's really not necessary. What it is the belief that that is necessary. The belief that I have to show up 365 days a year, or the belief that I have to be consistent to see progress. Like, you showing up on social media consistently can definitely support your business in a positive way. I'm not denying that. What I'm wanting to challenge for you is that, is it necessary? Or do you just believe that it is? Because you believe that if you disappear offline for one day, or you don't post 5 times a day or 5 times a week, or however often it is that you believe that you have to post, that people aren't going to see you, or people aren't going to pay attention to you, or you're not going to have the success that you want. Look, I believe that consistency does build momentum, but I also believe that I'm never starting from the bottom, not when I'm partnered with God. So when I'm surrendered and I choose to be partnered with God, I am infinite because God is infinite. And when life shows me that there's something that may need my attention more, then that's what I do. See, that's the beauty also of running your own business. You know, my husband has a lot more stipulations on being able to take time off of work or going on vacation. And I'm grateful that I have a life that I get to do what I want to do when I want to do it. I work when I feel like working, which is most of the time, honestly, because it's my greatest form of expression. I enjoy the work that I do. I love the work that I do. So I always want to work, but it's not always what I'm meant to be doing in every moment of every day. This is one of the things that God created me to do, but it's not the only thing I was created for. And what I refuse to do is allow it to suck up all my time and take away from my family and destroy my peace by making it this thing that's just a bunch of pressure and a bunch of proving and a bunch of performing, because that's not what God created me to do. And that's not who He created me to be. And that makes me think of this cliche thing that people always say that I love. You're a human being, not a human doing. It's not about doing all the time. It's really about who you are being in everything that you're doing. And that's what makes the difference in your life. I'm only interested in showing up online when I have something to say, when I feel like there is something in me that God wants me to express, when I feel that there's a message that God wants me to get out, like the surrender experience. I haven't worked in my business consistently for a few years now, and it's because I know that I don't have to. For one, because my life is still beautiful and I still have everything that I need, and I know that everything I need is going to be provided for, whether I'm running my business or not. But when I feel like there's a fire burning in me and there's something that God is wanting me to get out into the world, I share it. And that's why I typically come back and share the surrender experience every year, because it's just that thing is what's burning inside of me. That is the thing that I want to share. And I'm looking forward to showing up way more than just for the surrender experience now, because I've definitely gotten a new fire for my business. But the reason why I didn't have fire for my business before is because I was burning myself out trying to show up every day. Even after I had decided that, it can be easy, I still continued to fall back into the same patterns of, well, I still need to show up every day, or I still need to do this, or I still need to do that. And if I'm not posting, if I'm not doing live streams, and if I'm not showing up online constantly, that people are going to forget about me. But that's not true, because when I was gone for almost a full year in my business, as soon as I introduced the surrender experience, there were 150 people plus that signed up to join the free experience. And then I had the biggest launch after that I've ever had in my business for women who signed up for the program that followed it. When we move in God's rhythm, life flows more smoothly. We don't have to control everything. We don't have to do everything. We don't have to figure everything out. We don't have to show up 365 days a year. And no shade to this person, like kudos to her for what she's created. But that's just not the path for everybody. I don't believe that women are ever meant to be working hard or to be out here doing all the things. I don't believe it's in our makeup. We are feminine beings. And we're going to talk about this more on day 6, I think it is, when we talk about masculine and feminine energy. And I'm going to break this down even more for you. But for some of us out there, knowing my human design and the way I was created, I know that I'm meant to be a surrendered being. Working nonstop and showing up 365 days a year is just not my vibe. It's not how I was created. And I know that there are many other women out there in the world just like me. They can't figure out why the business isn't working when they're trying to push, because it's not meant to be a push. And I understand exactly how that is, because I failed so many times in my business because I really thought that all of that stuff was necessary. And in my mind, it was almost like it's just not possible. Like I just couldn't see how to make it happen when I know the life that I have. And so I didn't understand how to do it. But I kept trying because I thought it was necessary, because that's what everybody was saying and teaching me. And I'm not even talking about working hard, quote unquote. It's just a matter of assuming that certain things have to be done. Showing up online every day, doing all these things were necessary. And when I finally decided to come back into my business consistently, God and I had to have a conversation. I was like, look, we're going to have to find a different way, God. You are going to have to show me a different way to do this, because the way that I have been doing it is not working. Now, I know he's probably over here like, yeah, duh. I mean, that's what I've been trying to tell you all these years, but you're not listening. Because I'm listening to the world and the conditioning of everybody else around me that's saying that it has to be done a certain way. So even though I had that huge breakthrough back in 2016 when I learned about terms and conditions and decided to do things my way, I still eventually fell back into the same patterns until I made a solid choice. First of all, to be fully surrendered, because the surrender part of it changed everything. It's almost like when I'm trying to do everything within my own power, like when I was trying to allow it to be easy, it worked for a little while until it just didn't work anymore because, like I said, I would get sucked back into what was going on in the world. But when I decided that what God wants is primary and everything else outside of that did not matter, and when I made a decision that if I never get to make another dollar in my business, I really don't care. I only want what God wants. That's when I started to see new pathways of how it could be different and how it could be easier. That's when I got the download to start a YouTube channel. And doing it this way is so much easier than what I was doing, posting on social media every day, dealing with Instagram, dealing with Facebook, thinking about whether I need to have a TikTok. I had to make a decision that I wanted things to be easier and that I wasn't willing to do all the things anymore. See, I'm not willing to sacrifice my sanity and my mental health and my wellness to perform on social media anymore. I am a much happier, much more peaceful person, a better mother, a better wife, and even a better coach when I choose what's going on in my life over all the other things that's going on that people are so worried about. Like I said, it's not that you can't see success through hard work. Hard work can definitely get you the results that you're wanting to see, but at what cost? And I'm not judging anybody out here who's doing their thing. Do your thing, right? I'm just trying to get you to understand that nobody's going to tell you that hard work isn't necessary. Nobody's going to tell you that you don't have to work hard. There's really only a few of us out here that really get that all of this hustling and striving and all this other stuff that people are doing out here is BS. So there will always be people who are going to tell you that it has to be done that way, that hard work is the only way, and that if you don't work hard, you're lazy and you shouldn't expect to see any sort of success. Or if you're not showing up 365 days a year online, that you won't see any movement on your social media or whatever growth you're wanting to see. And that is simply not true. The truth is that peace is priceless. And I love that I don't have to care about what anybody else is doing online or even offline for that matter. I don't care about the algorithm. I don't care what the rules say. I don't have to follow the rules of the world. I'm in this world, but I'm not of it. I don't follow these rules. I make the rules. I am the exception to the rule. I get to choose the terms and conditions, right? God is my CEO. God and I are the majority. So we make the decisions, not social media and not the world. And it took me a really long time to get that. And now that I get it, I want to make sure that you guys get it because I don't want other women to have to struggle trying to do all of these things that are not necessary. There will always be people who will glorify the hustle and the striving and the being busy and doing all the things. But what happens is, and I think I mentioned this in one of my last videos, you can do the 365 days a year thing. Like you can do that if you want. Because like I said, nobody's going to stop you from working hard. God isn't even going to stop you. You're going to be like, okay, you got it. Good. I'm glad you got it. And I just always have this vision when I'm over here doing all the things of God with his arms folded, like, okay, whenever you're ready for me to step in, then I'll step in. But while you're doing it, do you, boo-boo. God is not going to violate your free will. If you want to do it for yourself and do it on your own, he is going to allow you to do that. But when you decide that all of that is necessary, when you're the person who feels like you're in control and you're the person who has to show up 365 days a year to make the things happen, then you're going to have to continue to show up 365 days a year to sustain it. You get what I'm saying? Until you decide that I'm not going to do this anymore or it can be easier than this, then that's going to continue to be your experience. My experience says it's easy. My experience says that that's not necessary. My experience says that I can rest and I can take 2 months off if I have to do that. And I can come back and things are still going to be just fine. And if yours says something different, if your experience says it's hard, or that you have to work constantly and that you can't ever take a break or that you can't ever tend to your own well-being, then that's something you have to work through. And that's why the work is so important. That's why this work matters so much. And it's also why it's so very valuable to have a coach, because I can help you do the work to change those beliefs. And I'm not telling you that it happens overnight either. This is a trust process, a faith process. And this conditioning runs deep. So it's not just something you can wake up one day and be like, oh yeah, it's easy. It's not like that. It takes work to recognize that it's easy. It takes reminding yourself every single day. It takes reading and writing and believing and speaking it out loud and really digging it up. And I mean, whatever you can do to get it up, snip, burn, cut it off, all of those things to really start uprooting those beliefs. And the work, honestly, in my opinion, is so much easier than all this other crap that people are doing out here, all this hustling and working 365 days a year, trying to make things happen for themselves, or because they feel like it's necessary to appease the algorithm or whatever it is that they're trying to appease. Because if you don't do this work every day, surrendering and reclaiming and reinforcing your identity, it is going to feel hard. And it's going to continue to be hard. And you are going to keep falling back into the same patterns and keep feeding that belief that says that it has to be hard because you don't know how to do it any other way. But God sent me to interrupt the pattern. Okay, so the way that you make it effortless is that you do the work. And the work is simple, you guys. It's spending time with God every day. Every single day, you put God first. Before you do work, before you do anything, you take that time with Him. That's where it begins. It doesn't have to be hours on end. It can be, but it doesn't have to be. It can be as little as 15, 20, 30 minutes a day. It just has to be intentional. That's truly all the work is. And then before you know it, it becomes your lifestyle. And as you do this work, all the other work doesn't feel as hard anymore. And it won't take as much effort to accomplish the things that you're trying to accomplish, because this work is what makes all the other work effortless. So you do get to choose, and you can start with surrender. It's one of the simplest ways to get where you're trying to go, but it does take practice and it does take work, and I'm here to help you through all of that. That is the entire point of this experience. And again, that's why the Telegram group is so important, because there's so much more with the added prayers, journal prompts, assignments, and practices. That's what makes the work become more effortless. Okay? And actually with that, I'm going to stop the audio here because I thought I may have to record this one in multiple recordings, and this is a great stopping point for us to do that. But before I close out, I just want to say, we have inherited so many narratives about how hard you're supposed to work and how often you're supposed to show up and what the algorithm demands and what business should look like if you want to succeed. And unfortunately, I've seen so many women give up on their businesses or just decide that it's not worth it. It's burning people out. I've seen people quit their businesses, including myself. I've seen people go into the hospital, be sick, have all of these different experiences because of all of this pushing and striving that everybody's doing. And the beautiful thing about surrender, like real, true surrender, is that it gives you permission to choose differently. It gives you permission to do what you feel like God is guiding you to do and not what everybody else says that you should be doing. It gives you permission to reclaim the terms and conditions of your own life. And it lets you allow God to lead the way instead of allowing pressure and performance and proving and fear and all of those other things to run your life. So now that we understand why surrender feels hard and how belief and conditioning have been shaping your reality, the next step is learning how to transform that. So in the next audio, we're going to learn how to actually repattern what you believe and how to decondition what's been running the show and how to step into surrender in a way that feels effortless and empowered. We're also going to learn about the 2 core components that create this shift. And when you understand this, surrender becomes an entirely different experience. So take a breath, let all of that settle in, and then in the next audio, we're going to pick right up where we left off for the next part of day 3. And as always, I just want to say, if you made it this far, thank you so much for being here. I would love to know your thoughts about today's lesson. Please comment, share with me, share with us your experience. And of course, if you have any questions, hang-ups, anything you don't understand, please do not hesitate to ask, and I will be happy to answer. And lastly, I'd so appreciate it if you'd like, subscribe, and hit that little notification bell so you can be notified when I drop the next audio. Thank you so much for watching. Have a beautiful, extraordinary, miraculous rest of your day wherever you are in the world, and I will talk to you very soon. Mwah. Lots of love and miracles.